Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Art of War event in which the Herald of War is added to the game. So this week we have a bunch of things going on, easily the busiest week we have all month. As far as the biggest thing, of course, we have the start of campaign number 25, and with that, a new campaign pass. And keep in mind, from the previous patch, like 2 patches ago or so, we do have a brand new campaign system, same one as last time. However, now, of course, we have these new tasks that end up resetting every single time. They seem to be very similar to the tasks that we had the first time around, as well as exactly the same in reward, with the main difference being that we need to kill orcs, which if you need to go do that, the easiest location to do that is Groshnok, and just do that at a really low difficulty or whatever difficulty you wish to farm it on, and that would be by far the easiest way to target kill a bunch of orcs if you find that you're just not killing a lot of them naturally. But beyond that, yeah, we end up getting quite a bit from this. We, of course, get 3 deep books, in this case red. We end up getting the 3 glory orbs, bronze, silver, and gold to get something completely max. So not too bad at all. Of course, we also have the standard paid pass, and by standard I mean the slightly upgraded one where we do have shiny tokens now. As every single one of these campaigns, we do get shiny mythics now, 1 new shiny mythic. And with that, we have Krog Rock's Blood Skull. Of course, the main new mechanic that came in with this campaign is Enrage gems. While Enrage gems already existed within the game, we haven't actually had anything to create it. And actually, if I'm not mistaken, we still have nothing in the game that ends up creating it, as we haven't gotten a glory troop or a weekly troop yet that has Enrage gem mechanic, though throughout the season we'll likely be getting a handful of option. So Enrage gems, they'll do pretty much exactly what you think they will. They are red gems that when taken will end up giving Enrage to a random ally. Unfortunately, this is random, and of course, generally speaking, the only one that really needs Enrage is your first slot, so this might be a little bit inconsistent to try to get value from, because unless it's something on your team that has boost ratio from your entire team being Enraged, which are a handful of ones that do that, including this troop itself, but in any other normal circumstance, the only things that would really gain benefit from Enrage is whatever your current first slot is. So as things start to die, obviously each one can individually still use their Enrage, but most of your first slot is the one that's getting the good bulk of your value from Enrage. As far as his ability, it's actually not bad. They're starting to go on a trend ever since this new system of making campaign mythics that aren't completely useless the second they exist. Similar to the other one, it's probably not going to be used like a huge ton, but it's definitely a great utility to end up having. So as far as what this guy does, he ends up dealing a bunch of heavy splash damage to an enemy and a random enemy, so you get to choose one, the other one is random, and that's heavy splash, so it is 75% to the 2 adjacents, and this is boosted by enraged allies and enemies, so it actually gets a pretty substantial amount of damage boost there, as given that you're creating a bunch of enraged gems, it actually is practical for there to be an 8 times enrage going on, which in that context would be 80 additional damage per each of the hits, plus you're doing 75% to adjacents, which is 60 extra damage to both of those, and it's not even counting whatever your base damage is, so early on in the game, that's a lot of damage. Like, you're basically just one-shotting battles at the low to mid stat ranges. At higher range, obviously doesn't do as much, but you still get the benefit of Enrage with your higher attack value, so there's still that going for it, and it ends up creating 5 Enrage gems, aka 5 red gems. I'm not sure if we currently know what happens when he gets to shiny level 2, but I would assume he creates slightly more Enrage gems, hopefully up to at least 8, if not more, because if it only goes from 5 to 6, that's basically nothing, but hopefully it goes a pretty higher amount, like at least 8, maybe 9, maybe 10, but probably 8. The other thing it could end up doing is making his boost ratio bigger, which would also be fine. He gains a lot of value from his boost ratio, so that being even higher would be nice. One other thing that's really nice about him is his trait setup, oddly enough. He has Impervious and Ancient Guardian. He ends up gaining Enrage and Barrier whenever you take an extra turn. This combination does not currently exist. There is Barrier and Bless, and Barrier and a few other different options. However, this is the first option that has Barrier and Rage. The most useful, practical location that you would end up using this is, of course, Skull Spam teams. He's already pretty oriented for Skull Spam teams, having immune to Entangle, Freeze, stuff like that, while also having Enrage basically for your entire team, especially if he creates more gems when shiny level 2, as you actually have extra turn potential, whereas 5 is not really enough to really secure extra turn a lot of times. But yeah, he's going to be a really good offset for a Enrage spam team. So whenever you're doing any kind of skull spam and you just need a little bit of extra Enrage, it's going to be really nice for that. Also has really good synergy with things that already do that, like Wild King. If not mistaken, I don't think he has a single color conflict with Wild King. So in instances where you can end up using both of them, it is a blue, green, yellow that enrages all allies while creating a bunch of skulls and mana accumulation and everything. Even has a Bone Storm at start of battle to go with it as well. But yeah, blue, yellow, green, I believe that is 0 mana conflict whatsoever. Right, yellow, let's see if I can remember that color. Let's see, is that 0 mana conflict? If I can click the right one. Yellow, green, what was the other one? Was it blue overlap? I think it's blue overlap, which could be also seen as a good thing, that they're at least covering one color together, because neither of them seem to be covering purple. But that means in a blue restriction, you would be able to use both of them together, so it's kind of a plus rather than a minus, that they cover all colors but with one overlap there. So, yeah, not bad, especially since there's already like a billion purple means to end up creating skulls. So you're probably already using that for a skull spammer on your team. But yeah, him with Wild King with a purple skull spammer with like one good mana accumulator, maybe like Hero with Wand of Stars or whatever you're using for that. Some kind of Empower option, even a Leprechaun or something. Really good overall combination. So it'll be interesting to see how he ends up panning out in the future. As far as when you'll be able to get him, Standard Pass ends up getting him in, of course, 10 weeks from now. Extra Paid Pass gets him in 8 weeks, and Free-to-Play gets it in, gosh, what, 5 months from now? 6 months? Basically, like March or April of next year, you'll probably be able to start going for it in various drop tables. The only bad thing about these campaign mythics is they basically have like a billion release windows, because every paid option is basically just getting access to it early. But yeah, overall, I do like the direction that they're going with these. They are, I guess, a little bit pay to win for that little bit of downtime for like, you know, the next few months or so if there's like a viable time to go and run them. But they've actually been adding useful ones here rather than the dead content they've been doing for like the last, like, what, 20 campaigns? 15 campaigns? So it's nice to see the last two, they're actually starting to become viable ever since they've been doing the shiny mechanic thing. Anyways, beyond that, other things that end up coming in. Of course, with the campaign, we also have Enrage gems falling from sky. So scroll spam teams are a little bit better this time around, but they're rare enough that you're not really going to go out of your way to try to utilize that, as they're not falling nearly as much to be able to get a lot of value from them. But you will be getting a little bit more Enrage onto your team than you otherwise would be on any other season. And it's not really an annoying power gem, which is nice. Any season that we don't have an annoying, intrusive power gem is always good to see. And this one is pretty unintrusive. It's generally just a small little benefit if you get it. And if the enemy gets it, you don't really care that much because they're probably not going to be able to get much value off of it. Beyond that, other things that we have going on this week that you definitely don't want to end up missing is we do have Guild Wars. Guild Wars, of course, starting this Thursday. Set your team on Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll cover the offensive teams today, as well as the offense and defensive teams in a video tomorrow. Probably covering it for red defend layout, though we'll still go over overall strategy for countering red in general in that video as well. But yeah, Red Guild War. This is a very, very, very strong category. It is by far the strongest category we have ever had for Guild War. It also ends up utilizing a lot of the 8.8 updates. So we'll be able to get a lot more data and a bunch of other small changes that end up coming in with 8.8. Overall, the main one that we can actually see right now is we can actually see the shiny troop. We weren't able to do this before, but yeah, it's only Viper. Viper is pretty underwhelming. It's a pretty skippable week. I'm not sure if I'm even going to bother getting it this time. I think I've gotten it every time or every time but once, but I think this is definitely a very, very skippable week. I'm not sure what its extra ability is, but honestly, I can't see it getting any stronger to the point where it could possibly be viable. Viper is already so weak. And obviously they were going to put it on something weak. Obviously it wasn't going to be like Tesla with 2 lower mana cost and even higher boost ratio or something. But yeah, they ended up picking a really weak option. They had every red in the entire game that's a legend to pick. And they tried to find like the absolute worst one to go and put it on. But as far as the actual category is really strong. It's basically old Guild Wars system, except even easier, because the battles you have to go and fight against are going to be way easier than you otherwise would have had in the past. Because before, of course, let's say you were running Red Guild War Day, the kind of teams that they could set is absolutely anything. Of course, they couldn't overlap what troops they were using, but they could use absolutely anything in the entire game. But now it's a lot easier because they're going to be a lot more restricted. Like when you're using a pure red team, you're only going to have to fight like an elf team or a naga team. Obviously, some of these are still strong, like a Taurus with anti-red and stuff like that. However, it's not as strong as being able to use literally anything like in the previous Guild Wars system. So this is by far the strongest because offensively, you have the most amount of options, while defensively, you're still very, of course, limited, which is way more limited than it was in the previous system. So it should be a lot easier other than for Palace Battle. But every other battle should be way easier compared to the old Guild War system where you would have, you know, been running a similar Red Guild War Day. But otherwise, the teams pretty much still stand. Actually, I think we still have a team set from like ages ago. Obviously, a lot more meta stuff has come during that time, so we're not going to be using that team. Actually, we'll probably go there next, go over all the teams. Yeah, we're still using a Zolgoth team back then. Interesting. Quick kill Zolgoth team just with a bunch of mana accumulation. Interesting, because I think I went this for the low rarity team, which is kind of funny. Wait, I did end up setting up the low rarity team, right? Well, we'll find out in a moment. Otherwise, we'll make it on the fly. I'm pretty sure I ended up making it, right? Didn't I do the same thing? I did! That's funny. I didn't even check the team And I actually ended up doing almost the same strategy. That's really funny. I actually didn't check that beforehand. But it actually uses a similar strategy of the Gimlet Angry Mob. It's a really strong strategy, of course. And I just didn't want to overlap with Wanda Stars because when we go over the teams, the other teams are already Wanda Stars heavy. So I kind of wanted to go with Mang there. But anyways, other things to mention this week, Talk Like a Pirate Day pet. Coming in this Wednesday, I will also be handing out one of the old pets tonight on stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll also be streaming on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday here on the channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, doing every single one of the Guild War days. But I'll be handing out one of the old Pirate Day pets on tonight, and then the in-game one will be this Wednesday for 2025. Little pirate guy with a little shoulder ghost parrot thingy. But yeah, make sure to go get this, as these things almost never really return, and when they do, it's generally for money on one of the flash offer thingies. And very rarely do they ever come back for free through any other means, so definitely make sure to go get that. Of course, it is cosmetic, so not really too big a deal, but nice little thing just to kind of fill out the roster. One thing that's pretty nice, I don't think we could have seen this the other week, but we can actually see when the Halloween event is. Even though we currently do not have the event calendar for October yet, we can see that the October event, or the Halloween event, is starting in 34 days and 13 hours from now. So 35 days, which is what, 5 weeks. So in 5 Mondays from now, we should have the Halloween event, unless they change it by a week or something. As it currently stands, it should be in 5 Mondays from now, 5 weeks from today. And of course, pretty noteworthy thing about this, other than getting the old Halloween armor and a new troop and a new pet that goes with that troop, is we'll end up having the Power Orb. Of course, if you still need Power Orbs from Maelstrom Dagannoth, cheapest you could ever get them, as well as just filling out any of the other ones like Zolgoth, Catharix, Enrage, Karandera, and go and fill out all of the Power Orb mythics. So a great time to go get your Maelstrom Dagannoth progress if you haven't already been able to craft them in the last few months since he ended up coming out. And yeah, that's right around the corner as well. Anyways, I believe that's pretty much everything. Let's go into the team. So we have the Red Guild War teams here, as well as everything else throughout the week. So let's start all the way from the top of the Invasion event. Actually, let's go over the Invasion event real quick. So Invasion event, of course, same thing as per usual. You want to go and buy to tier 3. Buying to tier 3 gives you access to the troop as well as the weapon. Weapon's actually worth mentioning this time. Well, it's not great. It's better than what we've been getting for some of them. It gives a bunch of attack and life to all Daemon allies and then blesses them. The main reason I say this is half decent is if you are in a restriction where you have to use 4 times Daemon, this is not horrific to use, as you have very limited means to bless a lot of times. So if we ever have like a pure Blighted Land restriction again, which would have been great for the Guild War for it or something similar, but in those kind of circumstances, even World or Underspire, if you wanted to go run it this week, though I don't think I do for any of the teams. But it's definitely an option. Daemons don't really have too many good ways to bless, if really even any at all in most categories. So be able to have a means to do this off your weapon is a nice way to kind of offset your pure Daemon team. So it's not the greatest of weapons, but in the category that's put under, it has a little bit of use case, if nothing else. But of course, you end up doing that, you get multiple score for the troop, and you basically just want to double up on double invasion troops in your front line. With that being said, one of the old ones that, oddly enough, was shinyable, if you end up doing this event, I want to say like half a year ago, I forget exactly when this came around, you would have for free already gotten shiny level 1, and if you've opened some amount of shiny keys, you might already have them at shiny level 1 or 2 as well. This was not paywalled or anything, this was just from the natural event itself. So just partaking in the event back then, you would have already gotten it to a little bit of extra benefit. So yeah, this guy's already pretty good. Even with no shininess, he's perfectly fine. His 50% score reduction anytime an invasion troop has this, really solid. Obviously the really high amount of tower damage, and everything else not too relevant because we're mostly going to be casting with this guy. This guy, of course, will have double magic as well as 20% stats this week, so he has a huge amount of damage, on top of the fact that he could hit up to 5 times damage on the towers, so he should be one-shotting pretty much everything for the entirety of the event. He also goes to create 5 burning gems, which in the context of a Blighted Lands team is not bad. It's a good way to offset your burning if you're going to do it with like Baphomet or something similar from the kingdom. However, for this event, it doesn't really do much because everything on the opposing team has immune to fire once you reach 4 towers, but it is good outside the context in a Blighted Lands team, if nothing else, giving another burning option for the kingdom. And beyond that, just his normal tower killing stuff. But with his double magic and 20% stats this week, that's the main thing you're utilizing. You're using this guy for skulls and you're using this guy for casting. We're using Flaming Onions for a little bit of mana accumulation. Also his backup summon if you happen to get to the point where you end up needing that. In case they start insta-killing you, you'll be able to go get summons and meat shields for your entire team. And Wand of Stars, just do normal Wand of Stars things. Covers the rest of the colors, does a bunch of mana accumulation, gives you bless. And I was going to say curse as well, but you actually can't curse them because they have immune to curse. You can dispel them with mech, so when you take an extra turn, you can dispel them away, but you can't actually curse them because they have immune to curse. So you cannot dispel them via curse, but you can dispel them through via dispel whenever they gain barrier or enchant or any of the other few effects they have. Beyond that, the Invasion Low team, we're basically running a pretty similar premise, but we're running a different amount of mana accumulation. We're running the Inferno Voyage. This has Empower Skull Convert, so you have Empower, end up converting all blues to skulls, and just gives you a bunch of skull value on turn 1. Similarly, we're also doing this just for turn 1 value, converts all yellow to purple, and gives a bunch of attack to your first ally, which of course will end up being this thing, so you can end up gaining a bunch of extra value. It's also really tanky, so it should survive for quite a while. And of course, any attack that you do here is basically times by 5, because if you have them fully maxed out, you will end up getting that 5 times multiplier on any of the attack boosts that you give to it, giving it even better attack range. The 75% score reduction one might still be a little bit annoying, as this team does not have any access to Enrage, but with all that extra damage, it shouldn't really be that big a deal. Plus, you could just cast kill it as you normally would. And it also has Curse, but this is only relevant for the earlier battles. As I mentioned earlier, they do have immune to Curse, but you do end up getting the attack value, which is the main thing, and the purple for your really high damage poke. So he basically increases this thing's damage and this thing's damage by giving this mana and this thing attack value. As far as the Underspire or Underworld, it is a yellow-purple restriction. With that being said, we're just running a Atlanta quick kill team, just running Leprechaun to get everything rolling, and just running for Hero to give some class XP, running Mech in case you need anti-submerge, and just running Atlanta at 75% mana start to go and quickly kill out the opposing team. For our higher rarity team, we're just running a pretty standard insta-kill team, just running a standard mana accumulation option, one of Stars and a Leprechaun, and just putting 2 insta-kill options in between the 2 power orb ones of Zolgoth and Catharix, but you can just put whatever your best damage options here are, of course. And as far as the Pure Faction teams, it's a nice diverse team of just 4 Nocturnia. Main premise of this is it does a ton of true damage, has heavy splash true damage, so it'll do 75% to adjacents, but it's also doing true damage to the adjacents as well, so you basically just completely ignore all of their armor value. Also has a 20% chance that you get a resummon, so even as your team starts dying, you get a Fel Roost egg into your first slot. And on top of that, there's a 50% chance to summon a Fel Roost with full mana upon its death. So not only is this thing a 50% chance you'll get a resummon on its death, but every single time any of these casts, you also get a 20% chance to resummon in the first slot. So basically, you start as 4 times Nocturnia, but by the end of the battles, you'll be a Fel Roost egg in first slot with 3 Nocturnias behind it, and that is more than enough to go take out the final battle. And you just keep chipping them down with your Nocturnias. Hopefully, you have access to enchant, because obviously this is very mana dense with the same color, but they're all going to get enchanted up as long as you have access to it. So you'll end up getting their mana automatically over time, and you just go and power all your true damage on whatever the biggest threat is on the opposing team. As far as the Diabolist class, is arguably one of the worst classes in the entire game. The main reason for this is it has a final trait that actively makes it worse. I believe it is the only class in the entire game that has a trait that you cannot get rid of that actively makes it worse than if it had no trait at all. It has a 25% chance to summon a useless troop that blocks your yellow mana whenever you cast a spell. Not only is this a very low chance, but it just completely meat shields for no reason, as the troop that you end up getting just has no value whatsoever. It is a very useless hero class, and definitely runner-up for absolute worst class in the game, if not the absolute worst class in the game, due to that trait. Unlike a lot of other traits, which obviously you can end up opting for, if you want a specific one, you can never turn that one off unless you keep it untraded. But I believe in order to upgrade your kingdom to a certain star level, you actually have to, at some point, fully trait this thing. I forget what level. It's one of the lower levels, like at 8 or something similar. But at some point, you do have to fully trait your hero, which means you have to deliberately take this thing that actively makes it weaker. So unfortunate, and yeah, very weak hero class. Obviously, we're not using it. We're using Archmages for purple mana, and just running a bunch of Enberic for even more purple damage and purple mana and damaging all enemies. But of course, it's pretty standard, just rush Black Manacle team for Thursday class event for the 25 free gems. Now for Underspire is specifically Blighted Lands restriction, but this Blighted Lands restriction also applies to your weapon. Of course, we had a Blighted Lands restriction, 2-3 Guild Wars ago, where we end up having Shiny Baphomet. You definitely don't need Shiny Baphomet to be running Pure Faction here, especially at this high of a level. However, if you did end up fully shining him off that one event, he is a very solid damage source. He ends up gaining a whole additional hit for every single one of his abilities, while also still having his natural triple damage burning if you want to use him in a slot that ends up doing so, as well as, of course, his double damage on burning enemies. So basically, we're just using him as a very high damage AoE option, but he does it independently, so you don't end up needing Submerge counter in any way, because he's hitting for 4 individual hits. This also allows them to concentrate his damage, so if there's only 2 enemies left, 3 enemies left, you'll be concentrating your damage on whatever is remaining. You definitely don't need him to be shinied up, but if you do have him at shiny level 2, he will have a extra hit, 4 hits instead of 3, and of course shiny level 1 and 4 both lower his mana cost by 1, and he's normally 17 mana cost, and goes all the way down to 15. If you don't have any shiny levels at all, that is perfectly fine, or if you only got the 1 shiny level to get him to 1 lower mana cost, is also fine, but we're just happen to be running him as our primary damage source here for this specific team. but you do not need the shininess to be able to run him, and he's in event key, so he's pretty easy to get this week. Also, if you want to get him in event keys this week, this is the first time he's really been targetable since he's been shinyable at all. So if you have him at shiny level 1 or higher but don't own him yet, be very accessible to try to get him this week. But for budget team, we just go all in Nocturnia again, same as the budget team for the Guild War, except this will work out even better because your teams that you'll be up against are nowhere near as strong. But we're basically just running double Nocturnia. Of course, as we mentioned before, has the resummon, has the heavy true damage. We're running just a standard mana accumulation option, so we have a lot of ways to resummon into first slot. Ideally, you want to be doing off your weapon, is the resummons that you'll get from random daemon is way better than the egg. But regardless, you have multiple different ways of resummoning into first slot, and Herald of Damnation is here for both the Deathmark touch, so you might be able to get a free kill from it, but mostly for the blue to purple convert to get your Nocturnias up, as that is your primary damage source. You're just using both of these two options to feed into your double Nocturnia over and over again, with a billion different resummons for if your tank ends up dying. As far as the Guild War red teams, we're finally here. So, of course, this Thursday we have Guild War. Don't forget, if you're a guild leader, you end up setting the defend today. If you're anyone else in the guild on, well, technically everyone in the guild, on Tuesday and Wednesday, you need to set your defend team. And we'll have a defend team video going up tomorrow. And then on Thursdays when Guild War actually starts. On Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is when the Guild War actually takes place. And you'll be able to go do your battles with these pure red teams. The only restriction is using a pure red team. It's literally the same as old Guild War format in that regard, except the battles that you'll be up against on everything other than Palace will be way easier than the previous system, as the defends are way more restrictive than they were in the past, whereas your offensive team is literally the same as if it was Red Guild War back in the day. So as far as what we can run here, there's a lot of powerful things. Keep in mind, you actually are allowed to run Wand of Stars and Stellaryx here. You do not want to run it defensively, so don't do that defensively for any of your teams. However, offensively, you are allowed to run Wand of Stars, and you are allowed to run Stellaryx. So in this case, we did run Flower Dragon for this particular team. But of course, if you have Stellaryx, you can use Stellaryx for this. Offensively, you can. Defensively, you can't. But for your offensive red team, you can end up doing Wand of Stars Stellaryx. So if you have that, go ahead and do it. But yeah, really strong option. This is something we did not ever have access to, either Stellaryx or Flower Dragon, in the previous Guild War system. And they are very, very... Actually, I don't think we had Wand of Stars either. Oh, no, we did. But we didn't have the really hefty dragons. I think we had Diamantine at the time, but it wasn't really worth running compared to, you know, Stellaryx or Flower Dragon. But anyways, Wand of Stars, Flower Dragon, insanely strong. We don't have a direct Dispel on this team. However, we do have ways of getting around that. We have Curse on Mirage Queen, which of course can dispel as long as you don't have Invulnerable, as well as the Wand of Stars Curse also ends up having it. So even though we don't have extra turn dispel, we still end up having option for it. Of course, we're running Elementals here because we have Mirage Queen for 50% mana start to all Elementals. It's not a pure Elemental team, though you could end up going for an Empower that is an Elemental. I think it's Drowned Sailor ends up doing that. If you want it for, I believe, blue mana, yellow to blue convert, you can end up going down that route. However, for this, we end up going with Ihi Cattle. The main reason for this is because of Light Storm. So we wanted to have a Storm on the team. And just so Flower Dragon has extra chance of extra turning in case the enemy doesn't have any kind of perpetual storm. So we're basically using it as a storm option to increase the extra turn rate whenever we cast Flower Dragon, and even to some degree when we cast Wand of Stars, as long as we get a full board clear. So we're doing that mostly to increase the chance that we'll end up getting extra turn, setting our banner really heavy into yellow to both assist EE Cattle as well as the yellow storm that he's creating. And basically from there, just standard Flower Dragon into Wand of Stars team. The only big issue with this team is not counting Mirage Queen. Our only damage is coming from Flower Dragon. So if something were to happen to it, if it gets insta-killed from something or something similar, you are losing your entire team the second Flower Dragon dies. But you can, of course, adjust your main mana accumulation option in order to go and offset that, or even potentially get rid of some things in order to go and do that as well. Most likely your Empower or your Hero for a different option is you probably want to keep your Mirage Queen for both Dispel as well as for the 50% start, just to get it rolling a bit quicker. But depending on what's the opposing team, of course, you would adjust accordingly. As far as the lower rarity or the mid rarity team, luckily we get past this with double Tesla. So if one Tesla dies, you still get a second one. Of course, Tesla, really strong boost ratios from all enemy armor. Pretty notoriously does not use magic, which is actually why we're using Spider Throne. There's a lot of utility troops you can do here. You can use the 2 explode per turn guy. You can use a bunch of other different empowers. A lot of different options you can end up doing. However, the main reason we went for Spider Throne is even though it's not really creating a good color, Web Gem should be, what, purple? Of course, that is not a color that Tesla ends up using. However, the main reason we're using this is not for the mana accumulation. The main reason, well, we are still using it for mana accumulation to get wand going, but the main reason we're using it is for the actual web itself. This team, and of course Tesla notoriously, does not use magic at all. Wand of Stars does not use magic. The Spider Throne itself does not use magic. And of course, Tesla does not use magic. It only uses armor. So if we end up getting web onto our entire team, it doesn't matter at all. They are likely to not have anything on their team that has web boost ratio. So it's not going to matter if you accidentally web your own team. And you're not using any magic value. So if your whole team gets 4 times web as this thing backfiring, then it won't matter at all. And of course, the benefit of webbing the enemy team, aside from substantially lowering their damage, is you basically increase Tesla's damage in a sense. Because if they have a bunch of abilities that do a bunch of damage, like let's say hit all enemies, and that boost ratio is based on their magic value most likely, then they're going to be doing very, 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 very little damage compared to what they normally would be doing, as they will have 0 magic because they're webbed. Whereas you would still have the full amount of benefit on your Tesla. But this also means when they end up hitting you on your armor value, they're going to have 0 magic, so whatever ability they're doing is likely doing very, very minimal damage. So you'll preserve more of your armor, which preserves more of your damage. And that's pretty much the whole premise here. And then we're just doing the web to make sure no damage is really done by the enemy. You take no negative effect from it. Wand of Stars for normal Wand of Star shenanigans. Ideally, you get it turn 1 from Spider Throne, feeding it mana. And then you just keep doing Wand of Stars to feed your Teslas, keep spamming your Tesla until you win. And we're using Mech for not only the extra little bit of armor bonus, but also because it has Dispel. So you can get rid of Submerge or any other annoying effect that might be on the opposing team that would otherwise stop Tesla from doing damage. And yeah, that's pretty much the plan here. And for the low rarity team, we're running almost similar to what our old Guild War was, just without the Zolgoth or Wand of Stars. Of course, you could use Wand of Stars in this team. I opted not to and just go for Black Manacle. But if you do find that the enemy has a lot of stats effects, you might want to go for Wand of Stars if you have access to Wand of Stars. But we're running a main team. So as long as you don't have Entangle, you can end up running this. Ends up eliminating all armor from an enemy, and then you gain that as attack value. This allows you to scale up really nicely if the enemy has a lot more stats than you. We're also using a really tanky hero class of Geomancer that has 50% score reduction as well as Barrier every Brown. So we are very, very bulky while also having a bunch of immunities, which are really nice, as well as 50% mana start. So we have that natural start as well. We're using Gimlet to give it Enrage, so even more damage. It allows us to hit through traits, as well as a bunch of brown mana, which we need for Barrier, as well as to get our other main mana accumulator going, Angry Mob. Angry Mob is basically the main thing you'll want to run to make sure you don't end up losing on low rarity teams or even any rarity team. It ends up destroying a bunch of mana gems and has a chance to do either a little bit of poke damage or resummoning itself. And worst comes to worst, in a lot of situations, as long as the enemy doesn't have anything that can hit all enemies simultaneously, you just keep resummoning angry mobs over and over again. And if your whole team becomes 4 angry mobs, that's still enough to win. He can literally solo an entire battle with enough luck, as long as the enemy doesn't have anything that hits all enemies simultaneously too hard. But even if they do have something like that, as long as you keep getting resummons over and over again and keep getting new, fresh, angry mobs onto your team, he can basically just infinite self-sustain by fading him to himself, having good chip damage with his Enrage, be able to still do chip damage on his ability, doing all the mana accumulation you need. Even though your whole team would be brown-red and heavily mana blocking yourself, he does enough mana accumulation from his Destroy that he's gaining most of his mana back. He's only 13 mana, and you're destroying a lot of gems. Earlier on in the game, of course, you'd be destroying a bit less, but still, it's a substantial amount. And then the other one's just utility. Frostfire King, while it is a legend, it is a faction legend, so it can be targeted whenever you want, including this week. All you have to do if you don't currently have it is throw some Chaos Shards at the Frostfire Keep in Underworld, and you'll end up getting this thing in a few thousand or so. Main thing we're doing it for, since we're not using Elemental as hero class, we're using it for the freeze burn, mostly for the freeze, in order to go and freeze the opposing team out, in order to go and get a lack of extra turns for them. You could also end up utilizing triple damage burning if you want with a triple damage burning hero class, but since it's a low rarity team, we did opt for the tankier route rather than the insta-kill burning route, but it is an option with this. Also, it is perfectly fine to go replace this out for pretty much any other utility or damage source. Is mostly just here is the flex option. The main core of the team is pretty much Gimlet into Angry Mob, and your hero weapon can pretty much be whatever, and the other thing can be whatever, and you basically change them out based on whatever the opposing team is. You could even see that pretty much with what our old Guild War team is, as our old Guild War team is exactly that format, oddly enough. I didn't even realize that, but yeah, it's the Gimlet Angry Mob setup. This was good back then in Guild War. It's still good today if you need a low rarity option. It's literally just Gimlet Angry Mob as the core of your team, and then you just replace out with whatever your best 2 options here. Of course, in the past, that was Wand of Stars Zolgoth. These days, that would be, I guess, Wand of Stars and the Flower Dragon if you want to run it that route or something similar, or Stellarix or something similar. But yeah, it worked back then. It works now. And it's just the lower rarity version of such a team is what we end up building here. Just to keep everything at the easier to obtain routes. This is just from leveling up your hero. This is a easy to get epic, and probably the hardest thing actually on this team to get. This is a random ultra rare, and this you could target at whenever from faction, or even replace with any other utility option. And this can also be replaced with Wand of Stars if you have. But yeah, that's pretty much the game plan for that. And we'll have a video tomorrow going over more of the defend teams and the defend team strategy in that regard. But anyways, let's go over everything else. So, Soulforge. I didn't actually peek at this earlier. Do we have anything cool in Soulforge this week? Let's see. Suna, no. Ori, no. Baphomet. I believe it's the first time since he's been shinyable that he's in the Soulforge. However, he's also in event keys this week, so there's no reason to waste 800 diamonds on him. But if you really want to, he's there. But no, that's probably not worth it. Just event key for it. Hunglong, I guess, is okay. 75% score reduction. Ends up assisting a bunch of dragons. Very niche, very random ability, but it's not bad. Ended up getting a pet too, if I'm not mistaken, to give it +5 to all stats, which ended up making it a little bit more viable. Got that like, what, half a year ago or so. It's not bad. Very rarely used in Shen-Tang teams. You tend to use it. Divine and Dragon tends to have better options, so you don't tend to use it too much there. But 4-time Shen-Tang team do end up bringing it out, so it does have some rare use case. It's not a bad troop. It's just generally too RNG based for its own good, so very rarely gets utilized in that regard. But everything else just seems like normal stuff that isn't really worth getting here. Just trying to see if there's like any of the old event troop thingies. Doesn't seem like it though. And beyond that, Blighted Lands. Do we get any good Blighted Lands weapon from either of the 2 weapons that we need to craft? I don't believe so, but it will never stop me from checking. So we don't need it for that, and we don't need it. Oh, no, we do. Good thing I checked. Dread, there it is. This is why you check. Yes, 100%. Do not leave this week. Good thing I checked. Do not leave this week without the Dread Cutlass. It is used for one of the best weapons in the game. I try not to show it too often, as it is still a relatively new weapon. It's only been available for about a year now for free to play. Well, I guess that's enough time to kind of be showing. It's the best true damage weapon in the game, by far. It's not even close. Life and Death, while still good for tankability, this thing is way better for overall damage. Basically double, if not more than double, given the extra mana accumulation on it. But it deals a bunch of true damage to all enemies, and it creates 3 booty gems for a little bit extra gold, and explodes 5 gems, which is the main thing that gives it all of its value. The 5 gem explode. That might not seem like much for 22 mana, but it does more than you would think, as far as getting your mana back up, cascading something, still having extra turn potential, while still having a decent amount of true damage. It's nothing crazy. It's pretty much like standard legendary troop as far as how much true damage you expect. But having this on hero with all the utilities you would otherwise be able to run on hero, really strong. And the fact that it covers 3 colors and not 2 also ends up helping a lot. Which ends up making its mana cost a lot lower. Even though it's 22, it's very comparable to something like a 15 or 16 mana cost legend, in the sense that it uses 3 colors instead of 2. So even though its mana cost seems a little bit high in that regard for only 5 explodes, the fact that it covers 3 colors make it surprisingly less than you otherwise would think. And of course, Dread Cutlass is the one thing you'd 100% want to make sure you end up getting this week. Not because the weapon itself is good, but because you need it for eventually your ruby weapon. And even if you don't plan to get this ruby weapon for the 1 million souls, you do eventually want to get all the components whenever you see them immediately, so that whenever you do want to go and get this weapon later down the line, you'll be able to do it. And out of all of the 1 million soul weapons, this is the strongest one of the 3. It's stronger than Dawnbringer, it's stronger than Duskbringer, and honestly, it'll probably be stronger than whatever the next one will be. It is very high up there. Even if the other one is stronger in a different angle, this is likely to still remain for a very long time the strongest true damage weapon any hero can have. So really good in that regard to always have as a utility option. Really good for Thursday class events. I normally don't show it for that. I'm opting for cheaper options like Black Manacle or Duskbringer or something similar. But this is a really great option to end up having for Thursday class events. You just end up using it, put a bunch of mana accumulation behind it, and it just wipes it very quickly, claim your free 25 gems on that day. Of course, you use it for more stuff than just that, but really great for that as well. Beyond that, if you're looking for any weapon other than Dread Cutlass, which 100% you should not leave this week without, I don't think we have that much. We used that one Explodey weapon, the Gatekeeper. It's not a great weapon, but it's good in the context of Underspire this week. So if you want to end up using it for any of the Underspire teams, it's good for that. Where do we do? I think we showed it on this one, right? No, we didn't show it on this one. That one, we showed it on the Low Rarity team. Yeah, we used it on the Low Rarity team for the resummon thing. But it's a great option if you find you're dying too much. It's really good for survivability for the current week's Underspire, as of course it's both Blighted Lands restriction, but also Blighted Lands weapon restriction, so you don't have too many weapons to end up using. This is literally the full list. So you don't really have that much options. If you really had to, I guess you could just use the Infernal Blood Ruby if you really wanted to. But the problem with that is it has no mana accumulation compared to something like Gatekeeper, so really great pickup to end up having if you find you're dying too much for the current Underspire event. As it can help you out a lot for both mana accumulation and for survivability. Anyways, beyond that, dailies, everything else we already went over there. Campaign, already went over that. Enrage gem, new guys actually pretty good. Invasions, this normal invasion. We already went over this. The most notable thing, of course, being Wednesday. Don't forget to go get a Pirate Day pet. And then Guild War starting on that Thursday then. We could even see right there. Good old Guild War, Red Guild War. Event keys then. So event keys we've been talking about a little bit. Are they worth going for? They're okay. I would say if you haven't already gotten it, getting your Baphomet, especially if you already have it shinied, could end up being a decent value. As far as what is not in drop table, we do have a good handful of them. The Red Doom of Flame is not in event keys. This is only from Red Tower of Doom events. The 5 Fel Rouge troops are not in event keys. They are only from the Thorin Chaos Shards at the Fel Roost faction. Other things that are not in drop table includes the current invasion troop, wherever it is. Why can I not find it? Yes, the Asbil. This one is not in the event key drop table. You can only get it from the current invasion event. In future event key drop tables it will be, but for this current one it is not. You have to get it from the invasion event for about 210 gems with the weapon. The 2 of Wands is not in the drop table, similar to the Devil. Both of these two are only in the Vault key drop table, though of course we just had a Vault event weekend, so if you open some of those keys, those are in that drop table, but they are not in the event key drop table. The other things that are not in drop table include the Demonic Sentinel. This is only from pure RNG from doing Underspire. Every single week you have a chance on those dead end rooms to end up getting those Sentinels. This is one of those 6 that you can end up doing. I'm still missing 2 of them. And the Immortal Infernax, unfortunately, despite how good he is not in the event key drop table. He is only from throwing burning chests at the PvP thing, which is actually something I don't normally show. Is the PvP chest any good this week? Let's see. It's not something I normally check because I don't normally keep a reserve. No, this is definitely skippable. Though, in all fairness, he is in. If you want to get him, he is technically in the mortal burning chest thing. Or, you know, the epic burning chest. So he is targetable this week, just not through event keys. But I wouldn't really do that. There's not enough good options there. You want to see at least 2 or 3 good options. There's only 1 good option there, the Immortal Furnax. So I'd probably skip on that. Though he is targetable this week, so that is a factor, I guess. Though probably not worth going for. Anyways, anything else to mention here? Yes. Why would you open event keys this week? The main things you're looking for is probably to max out your Baphomet. You probably already have him from shiny level 1 from the last PvP event. You can end up getting him to shiny level 3 if you end up getting that from event. I don't think he's in drop table yet for getting shiny tokens, or, you know, be able to get them for the shiny keys. I don't think you can do that quite yet. However, this is the first time he's been easily accessibly targetable since that event. So if you do want to end up getting him either now or in the future for when you do have those tokens, he does gain a lot of benefit at shiny level 2 when you do eventually get that. Being able to hit 4 enemies instead of his normal 3 ends up making him from a somewhat average troop to an actually viable burning damage team troop. Basically, anytime you're using burning, it is always viable to consider if you want to use a Baphomet on your team, especially if you have him at shiny level 2 or higher now, due to both the triple damage burning that he has, but also the 4 hits that all do double damage, which is a very substantial amount of damage now. So anytime you're ever building a burning team, always worth potentially considering. So that's the main thing from this kingdom. Overall, mythics here are pretty lackluster. Other legends here aren't really that noteworthy as well. Inferno King, to have him fully traded for some of the other things that summon him is not that bad. But for the most part, actually setting an Inferno King on your team isn't really that worth it. If you get him off of a revive or something similar, it's fine. But you generally don't ever start with him on your team. He's one of the troops that are kind of in that category where you want to get it to fully trade it, but you don't actually ever start with it on your team. You would just get it through other things that can end up in creating Inferno King, but you would never actually set the Inferno King onto your team unless you were absolutely had to. Like if you were building like a Skull Spam team out of just Blade of Lands, if you were run that for like Underspire this week, like you could end up doing that with like Immortal Furnax, Inferno King, do that into the Empower Skull with the Voyage thingy. Oh yeah, that's the other thing you probably want to open event keys for. There's a lot of good Empowers here. You have blue to purple while having Death Mark on Skull while having Skull damage. Really good first slot Empower, which is really good because a lot of Empowers you tend to put deeper on your team, like 3rd or 4th. But it generally ran as first slot, but for its score reduction, but more importantly for its chances to get a free kill sometimes. Normally it doesn't, but there's a small chance that it does. Lamish Dude does a little bit of poke damage while doing yellow to purple, while also using yellow itself, so you can actually deny that color in situations where that's relevant. There are a few situations where that comes into play. And of course, we also have Empower Skull. While there are other Skull Empower options, this is a nice one to offset it, as well as combining with them if you want to go like double Empower Skull or even triple Empower Skull. Unfortunately, the secondary effect doesn't really do much. It's just some extra souls, which of course does not make you win any quicker. But hey, free souls to go upgrade your troops and everything. But yeah, those are the main things. We're mostly looking for getting the Empower troops. This is for utility. Probably want to go max out your Baphomet because it's pretty good. And beyond that, once you have your Baphomet, your one copy of Inferno King Baphomet, either one copy or maxed, and all three of the Empowers, once you have that, you pretty much want to stop opening event keys here, with the only exception being if you're going for 30-star Blade of Lands. If you end up going for 30-star Blade of Lands, it could be worthwhile for all the extra magic value, as this is 1 to 5 Magic Kingdoms. So at 5-star, 10-star, 20-star, 30-star, if you're going for any of those power levels, if you're close and you're just missing a few troop upgrades, it might be worthwhile, as it is a magic-based kingdom, which gives permanent magic for all game modes other than Arena. So you can end up stacking a lot of additional damage into the future. Beyond that, any other things? I guess just the Glory Troop. So as far as the Glory Troop is concerned, unfortunately, for whatever reason, they didn't give it Enrage gem, even though this is the start of the Enrage season. We did not end up getting an Enrage Troop yet, but as far as what he does, he destroys a row, deals a bunch of damage to the first 2 enemies, boosted by red gems destroyed at a ratio that isn't really particularly good, and inflicts 2 stacks of bleed on them. Nothing really too out there. Traits are pretty underwhelming. You're basically never going to be using this thing. It doesn't have much synergy within its own kingdom anyways, so I don't really see a use case for when you're really going to be bringing this out, unfortunately. There just isn't really a need to go and end up utilizing it, so it's just basically another thing to go bolster up your star level to end up getting whatever star objective you want for your permanent magic upgrades from the kingdom. But anyways, guys, I believe that will wrap it up for now. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. All the teams we end up going over for the Guild War and everything else are in the description. As we mentioned, tomorrow we'll go and cover the Guild War defend teams, as well as the offense teams for the other video, just to kind of separate them. Otherwise, this video will be going for over an hour. But anyways, guys, hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.